you are one of the few people on Twitter that publicly tweeted at the very bottom for Bitcoin, right? I forget exactly what you said, but you tweeted about how you were deploying your free cash flows or something and encouraging people to stay safe and all that. But you bought the bottom basically. And a lot of people try to do that. Obviously, I'm sure neither of us are encouraging people to try to time the market, but I'm curious personally, what made you decide this is the moment? Was it the FTX implosion? Was it how did you know? And what can we all learn from your
Early in the year,
wisdom?
so this was early in 2022. I tweeted out that I was going to start saving all of my money in dollars, in cash, this horrible fiat currency that I've been just spent an hour and a half talking about. I went on Peter McCormick's show, talked about why I was doing that and storing all of my retained earnings in cash, and I was going to deploy it all back into Bitcoin whenever I felt like the time was right, and whenever I thought that there was a change in policy from the central planners that are manipulating all this money. So yeah, that's what I did. I took all the cash flows that I saved for the year and I bought Bitcoin with it at that moment. But uh, I do not recommend anybody does that at all. Like I did it because I get a kick out of it. And I feel like even if I kind of made some mistakes, this is really important too. I didn't sell the Bitcoin that I had
Yes.
when the
Yes.
market was up. I just continued to hold it. I make free cash flows just like other people have disposable income. I saved all those free cash flows for a year and then I bought Bitcoin with it. So even if I was wrong, let's say I was 6 months into this and Bitcoin ripped, let's say some major massive government stepped in and said, we all own Bitcoin, and Bitcoin ripped to 150,000. And I would have looked so dumb. So dumb. And you know what, Luke? I was prepared for that. I was having fun. But I think for a lot of people, they can't afford to be stupid like that. Because I no, I really mean this. I
Yeah.
really mean
Yeah.
this. Like what I was doing was more for my own personal enjoyment than what I would have said was a smart and thoughtful approach. Now it might look like it was brilliant or like a smart, thoughtful approach, but I'm here to tell you it was not. I should have just taken whatever I've got and just bought Bitcoin with it, without even thinking about it, and just dollar cost averaged. Okay. But I personally get a lot of pleasure out of playing in these markets. I wasn't doing anything risky. Like my treasury completely offset the amount that I was playing around with for the annual free cash flows, right? So like I I was making a some people say, and I don't think this is smart either, but there's a lot of people that have like play positions, and then there's people who have investments that they don't mess with. And I guess I was kind of doing something like that. But uh I don't recommend people try to do that. I think that there was an extraordinary amount of luck involved with it. What was I thinking when I did it? Well, I was looking at factors like previous 4-year cycles, where they were at that moment in time and where they kind of typically bottom. I was looking at the sheer panic and fear that was being induced by FTX's collapse and a bunch of other things, which I thought was a total overreaction in the market. It was having family and friends coming up to me and saying, "Oh, how about like in a very egotistical way? How about that Bitcoin with the elbow jab?" It was people on Twitter making their comments. It was like all of that together that I was looking at and saying, right there, this is what it feels like, because it felt absolutely excruciatingly terrible, and that's why I did it. And that's why I made the call when I did, is because I've participated in markets enough times to know when is the absolute worst time for me to sell a position or to buy a position. And I know what that feels like. And I just acted off of that gut feeling based on some of
Yeah.
those factors.
Yeah. Yeah. You've experienced it before. Yeah.
It's when
So
it's when the Mike Greens and the Brian Johnsons and the people like that are taking their victory lap that you know that you're experiencing some type of local bottom.
yeah.
And it's and
Yeah.
it's when like hardcore Bitcoiners like myself are rubbing the noses in people like that when you're probably hitting highs, or at least
Yeah.
local highs.
Yeah. Local highs or local tops or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's so much more I want to ask you about. I know we're running out of time here. One thing that people always ask me in regards to, most people, well, I've been very fortunate to go to a lot of Bitcoin events and conferences, and most people found me through your show. If any singular piece of content that I've ever been in a part of or made this year, this far, it's been your show more than anything. And the first thing you're like, oh yeah, you're the guy in Preston's show. I saw that. I loved it. Oh wow, Preston's so great, right? So everyone always loves to talk about how you're a great interviewer and about how you have the greatest guests on. And I'm amazed and thrilled just how well my show on yours did. Like, when you asked me to
It
come on your
crushed it.
show,
You had
I
very good
know.
numbers, Luke. Yes.
I
Yes.
know it's like it's something like the fifth or sixth most ever viewed Bitcoin podcast, at least on YouTube, you've ever done, right?
Yeah.
Like it shocked me. I thought I was going to go on and get like a little below average views because everyone's like, who's this, weird 20, who's this kid that nobody's ever heard of before, right? But it was the complete opposite of that. And so, in light of that, I'm saying that for the context of a lot of people have asked me, like, Luke, how do you grow so quick? Or Luke, how do you do all this and whatever? And so, I want to ask that to you, Preston. You've been in the space a lot longer than I have. You've seen a lot of names come and go. You've seen a lot of faces come and go. If someone out there is trying to start a business, or they're trying to get a connection with somebody in the Bitcoin space, or they're trying to have an impact, either like personally, like with their family and talking to their family, or they're trying to start like a educational business with Bitcoin, or they're trying to grow a following, or whatever they're trying to do, in your experience, having talked to so many people and seen both at the macro level and then the local level, what messages and storytellings work with people? Because I think that's what a lot of why my show did so well was the storytelling. As you've seen all that, what would be your advice to people if they're trying to tell those stories and communicate an idea to others to have that go over successfully?
So a couple things. I would first, and this one isn't necessarily one I think people can work on. It's you have to candidly, sincerely love the topic that you're covering. Like you love this, Luke. Like just like I love this. Like I would be talking about this if it didn't pay me a cent, and I'd be talking about it for decades. And you know what? When we first started the show, that was the case for literally years. Like literally years. We just would talk about because we loved the topic. So that's the first thing that somebody has to like the gut check to themselves is like, would I be talking about this for free? Or is there like some kind of hidden agenda like that I want something out of this? Because if you're doing it to help other people learn and you just genuinely love the topic, like you're probably going to do really well because it's not work. It's not work when you're treating it that way. The other thing that like for you, like you came on with that interview and you had all these graphical ways to back up what you were saying. And like, that's a lot of work. Like it's a lot of work intellectually to get to the point where you can even make a slide deck like that, let alone the skill to go in and eloquently and simply describe it so that people can comprehend it and understand it. And that's another thing that like sometimes people just don't have that skill set. Like I've worked around a lot of engineers in my life, and like some of them are brilliant, like brilliant people, but they would be literally the last person I would put in front of a room of 20 people to explain something to somebody. Some people have the innate talent for that, and you can overcome that, but you would have to work on that skill a lot before you just try to like. I mean, you could do it simultaneously. But the problem you run into is if you were really bad at the beginning and then a couple of years later you got good, some of your old content would like kind of destroy your brand. And some of it is you have to do it a lot to get good at it. So like I don't want to discourage somebody from starting out if they don't necessarily have that skill set, but you definitely have to kind of like hone that skill set. Um, and the most important one of all is just sheer persistence. Like, I mean, persistence. If I knew what I know now about like how hard it is to kind of break through as like a person creating content in this particular domain from a media standpoint, and I knew like how uh just how much hard work is involved there, you might not ever start. And so the innocence of like not knowing that is probably a good thing.
Yeah.
And it's just persistence. Like it's a marathon. You are not running a sprint, you are running a marathon of marathons. And again, it goes back to like if you truly, sincerely, candidly love what you're talking about, you can run that marathon. But if you hate
Hmm.
running, like sure you can do the sprint, but you're definitely not going to run a marathon.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's the same thing with Bitcoin. Bitcoin, you were talking about the 4 years. Like 4 years for a lot of people, I think a lot of people don't want to learn about Bitcoin because they don't even save money at all, right? Like, why would I save money for 4 years at all? And so I think it's the same way with Bitcoin, is that Bitcoin's not a sprint. You don't trade it like
Yeah.
Preston did. Preston got lucky, right?
That's
You,
it.
yeah, yeah. You have it as a marathon. And for those that are just starting that marathon, what do you think is a good target for them to start? Like, is it like, do you use a fiat number? Do you use a Bitcoin stacking target? Is it a percentage of savings, a percentage of income? Like, if you were to tell someone, hey, what's a good goal I should have for my first Bitcoin DCA, my first Bitcoin stacking target? How do you communicate that to them?
I think for people like they truly have to be reasonable with what their disposable income actually is.
Yeah.
Um, Without changing their lifestyle so much. Like, oh well, I could save this amount. Let's say it's $500. I don't know. But like let's just say I could save $500. Well, they could barely even save $100 before they came to this understanding that they now want to own Bitcoin and that they're going to save $500. So like for them, maybe that $400 difference is drastically changing their lifestyle and what they normally do. And so they're setting themselves up for a situation where it's like a diet, right? Like people that go on like these like really hardcore diets, like it lasts 3 weeks and then they can't do it anymore because it changed their lifestyle so much that it was destined for failure at the start.
Yeah.
So people have to understand what their actual disposable income is. They have to be really reasonable with any type of change to what they think that is. And then they just have to realize that they're running a marathon and that they just dollar cost average and keep buying and not looking at it, just let it do its thing. And I think that's probably the best approach.
Bitcoin is incredible and it's incredibly important, which is why it means a lot that you're watching this video and you're taking the time. I do this because I believe it is a really, really important innovation that we've discovered a way to not have a single point of failure at global base layer money. See, fiat money, political currency units, and gold, all other forms of money up to this point in history have had a single point of failure. This has been the largest monetary problem in human history for the last 4,000 years. And now we have Bitcoin, and Bitcoin solves that single point of failure problem. And now, therefore, we have a new single point of failure problem, and that is how do we custody and store that Bitcoin properly for the long term in a safe and secure way that brings peace of mind. That's why I work at the Bitcoin Advisor. If you were to be hit by a bus, does your spouse, do your kids, do your loved ones and beneficiaries know how to access your Bitcoin? Do you have a proper self-custody storage method to where there is no single point of failure? Not from yourself, not from your seed device, not from where your seed phrase is stored. Have you considered these questions? Have you gotten your UTXOs managed? Do you have jurisdictional arbitrage? Have you considered all the trust, taxes, and estate planning requirements that are associated with becoming a high net worth person? Because if you are buying Bitcoin right now, you are going to become a high net worth person. Are you prepared for the amount of Bitcoin you have to skyrocket in value 2x, 5x, 10x, or 100x eventually? That's the time horizon you should have And so you need to be preparing today for that future. How are you going to custody your Bitcoin? How are you going to leave that Bitcoin for your future generations? Because after all, that's what we do this for, right? You're buying Bitcoin for your kids, you're buying it for your grandkids. And so I highly recommend you start thinking in those long-term time periods now, because companies are coming, charities are coming, high net worth individuals are coming, and all of them are going to realize that having an allocation to a multi-sig collateral custody vault is going to be something that is of serious consideration for them. So once you understand Bitcoin is a beautiful innovation for not having a single point of failure at the base layer currency, now you have to start seriously considering, how do I have my custody stored where there is no single point of failure? Okay, if you want to learn more about that, please click the link in the description. I have dozens of pages of free educational content for you and videos. I'm happy to help in that free way. And then if you want individual help, I'm also happy to help you join the Bitcoin Advisor, where you can be an ongoing client. You can become one of my clients, and I'd be happy to help you in the years to come to make sure your Bitcoin's protected, to where no matter what, no matter if thieves or scammers or spammers or yourself or your family member or whoever, no matter whether it's due to theft or loss, misallocation, misplacement, or just other mistakes, I'm happy to help you and be that voice of reason in the coming years ahead. So click the link in the description. I'd be happy to help. Check it out. Thanks.